Uncover 3 sinister true countryside horror tales. Spiraling into the cursed depths of darkness, Sarah had never been the kind of person who believed in ghosts or curses. But that was before she settled down in Maplewood, the charming town on the outskirts of nowhere, with its white picket fences and seemingly friendly neighbors. After losing her husband, the warmth of those quaint streets turned into something cold and suffocating. She thought renovating their old home would breathe new life into it. But with each stroke of the paintbrush, darkness crept deeper into her life. That night, as she wrestled with a stubborn nail on her porch, she glanced over at the flickering porch light illuminating Mr. Hendrick's house across the street. The odd old man was watching her again, lurking in the shadows like a vulture waiting for its meal. His grin sent a chill down her spine. "I'll help you with that, my dear," he called, his voice creeping over like fog. But something felt off. It was more than simple neighborly kindness. It was something primal, predatory. The more Sarah worked, the more she felt watched. It became hard to shake that feeling as whispers began to seep through the creaking walls of her home. "Sarah, Sarah," they danced around her, each syllable echoing, slithering through her mind like a snake. As nights grew longer, her children's laughter was devoured by the silence, replaced instead by shadows that darted just beyond her vision. Her heart raced. What were they whispering? Why could she shake the sensation of icy fingers brushing against her neck? Days turned into restless nights as she brushed aside her unease. But uncovering the house as dark past was impossible to ignore. She found cryptic letters on her doorstep, hints of a tragedy buried deep in Maplewood's history. Each note unraveled secrets. The town was a place of loyalty turned bitter, of betrayal that cut deeper than any knife. Were the friendly faces she encountered hiding something sinister behind their smiles? The laughter she once found comforting now rang hollow, like a taunt that reminded her of her isolation. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One fateful evening, while digging through an old trunk in the attic, Sarah discovered a black and white photograph. As she examined it closely, her blood turned to ice. The faces in the image were her family's, but they weren't alone. In the background, shadowy figures loomed, faces hidden, but unmistakably familiar. Panic surged through her veins that night as she dared to look outside, only to witness that same gathering she suddenly recognized. Moonlight illuminated their form, a group eerily resembling her late husband, a truth that consumed her in dread. They were calling her name now, each whisper a drip of an unspeakable fate. Then, an ominous knock echoed at her door. It was Mr. Hendricks, his figure highlighted by the flickering porch light, an unsettling look on his face as he extended his arms, offering help that felt less than innocent. "You must understand, Sarah," he said, his voice pitched low. "Our community has a way of protecting its own." The shadows behind him loomed larger. The door creaked open as uncertainty wrapped around her like a shroud. Could she escape the grip of the past, or would this dark community pull her deeper into its cursed depths? The moment Sarah opened the door, an icy breeze swept in, chilling her to the bone. The flickering light cast long, distorted shadows on the walls, dancing like demons behind Mr. Hendricks. His smile was wide, almost maniacal, as he stepped inside. "You're safe here, Sarah? We all look out for each other in Maplewood." Safe. The word left her lips in a whisper. She felt the walls pressing in, suffocating her. Something was terribly wrong. As he spoke, the whispers swelled to a chorus, drowning out their conversation. It felt like the house itself drew closer, eager to absorb them both into its gloom. "Come," he beckoned, his voice wrapping around her like a vine. "I want to show you the truth about this town. You deserve to know." With a shallow breath, Sarah followed him outside. The moon hung like a sickly eye in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the sleeping houses. As they walked, she caught glimpses of neighbors peeking through curtains, their eyes glowing like feral animals. It felt like they were all watching, waiting. Something fluttered in the peripheral of her vision. Distorted silhouettes danced in the shadows, those same figures she had seen in the photograph. Panic crushed her chest, yet she couldn't turn back. She needed to understand. Mr. Hendricks led her toward the edge of the woods bordering the town. The trees loomed like towering specters, their gnarled branches clutching at the night sky. This is where the past is buried, Sarah. The sins of our ancestors linger among us. They protect our secrets, our way of life. What do you mean? She asked, her heart racing. What happened here? His eyes shone with a feverish intensity. Long ago, betrayal seeped through the soil. Neighbors turned on neighbors, death followed suspicion, and in the end, there was a price to pay. But we were chosen to atone. A low growl resonated from the forest, reverberating through her bones. Fear clutched at her throat. Everything in her screamed to run, but curiosity rooted her to the spot. Chosen for what? Mr. Hendricks opened his arms wide, revealing a small clearing bathed in silvery light. In its center, a stone altar was draped in moss, its surface scarred with deep grooves like claw marks. The smell of decay hung heavily in the air, seeping into her senses, twisting her stomach. What is this place? She breathed, stepping closer. Her fingers brushed against a symbol etched into the stone that sent a jolt of recognition through her. It looked eerily familiar. This is where we honor the pact, he said softly, almost seductively. Every decade, the spirits demand a tribute, a sacrifice to keep the darkness at bay. It's a ritual of protection, and you, Sarah, have been chosen. You must understand the price of safety in Maplewood. Each word sliced through her like glass. The whispers intensified, waiting hungrily as the shadows began to shift, coiling around her feet. A figure emerged from the tree line. It was a faint outline, but she recognized him instantly. Her husband's face, distorted and hollow, stared back at her with a haunting sadness. No, she gasped, stepping back. But the shadows surged forward, stretching closer, enveloping her in their dark embrace. Mr. Hendricks smiled wider, teeth glinting like fangs in the dim light. You have a choice, Sarah. Join us, or become one with the darkness forever. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stood at the crossroads of fate, the air thick with impending doom. Could she escape this twisted fate, or was she already in the clutches of a horror greater than she ever imagined? Darkness curled around her as she contemplated her next move. The shadows pressed in tighter, fingers of darkness tightening their grip around Sarah's ankles. Panic surged through her as her husband's hollow eyes bore into her soul. The figure beckoned with an unsteady hand, urging her to join him in the depths of despair. Her breath quickened, the fear knotting in her throat. Sarah! Mr. Hendricks' voice boomed, a command trapped in a whisper. You must understand. He is trapped. We are all trapped unless you obey the will of the forest. The wind howled through the branches, shrieking like a wounded animal. In the dim light, the trees seemed to bend toward them, their branches clawing at the air. The taste of blood seeped into her mouth, metallic and bitter. She could feel the weight of centuries, a truth unspoken but understood, that each life taken added to the fabric of Maplewood's cursed legacy. No, she screamed, breaking from the dark grasp. She stumbled back, her heart thundering as she fought against the power that wanted to consume her. This can't be happening. Run then, if you wish. He mocked, the shadows swirling at his feet. But where will you go? The town is alive, it watches over everything. The woods hunger for you, Sarah. You are not the first to feel its call. She turned, her feet slipping on the damp earth. The boundless night stretched before her, a never-ending void. If she ran into those woods, what lay lurking among the trees? Would it be better than confronting the reality behind the pact? Suddenly, her husband's figure shifted, facial features twitching and morphing like disturbed water. Sarah, he whispered, his voice a hollow echo of what it used to be. Help me. Don't let them take you too. She couldn't breathe, the world swirling like paint spilling off a canvas. The branches above swayed, shadowy forms weaving in and out. The town itself seemed alive, waiting with twisted anticipation. No, she shouted again, shaking her head to clear the horror seeping in. I won't let this happen. Grappling with what was real, she grasped for the promise of safety. Was it too late to break the bond? What would they do if she defied the pact? Would the darkness devour her whole? Mr. Hendricks tilted his head, eyes gleaming. You can end this cycle, Sarah. The sacrifice doesn't have to be blood. You can give your loyalty, your heart. That's all we need. He stepped closer, the shadows shifting behind him, pooling like ink at their feet. Leave her alone. A voice shouted from the shadows, suddenly piercing the still air. Whispers rang out, a chorus of past victims resounding like a distant melody. Don't trust him. The figures took shape, shadows humanoid, but with faces she could not quite make out. They surged forward, mingling with the winds, engulfing the altar with a frantic energy. The air crackled with expectancy. What are you doing? Mr. Hendricks cried, bewildered as chaos consumed the clearing. You cannot fight us. You are ours. With the gravity of a tide, Sarah felt a pull toward the altar, its weathered surface glistening like eyes watching her every move. She hesitated, clenching her jaw, as the weight of the previous sacrifices flooded her thoughts. Sarah, make a choice. The screams grew louder, ripping through the static of fear that a wild thought ignited in her mind. What if she didn't choose any of them? What if she took one last stand for herself? Enough of this, Sarah shouted, her voice breaking through the storm as she dived toward the altar. With every ounce of strength, she pressed her hands against the stone. The moment she touched it, pain shot through her, visions flashing faces, screams, despair. With a guttural cry, she fell back, the earth trembling beneath her. The shadows recoiled, shadows twisting into distorted shapes. Was it her choice that would shatter this darkness? Would it free them all? In that heartbeat, she knew whatever it took, she had to fight. The ground surged beneath her, a rumble of dread echoing from the forest beyond. What would emerge from the depths? The shadows writhed, waiting, as the very fabric of the town itself seemed to tremble. Sarah braced herself, the weight of every heart in Maplewood leaving a mark. So be it, she whispered, steeling herself for the reckoning to come. As she stood ready, the darkness swirled ominously, waiting for her signal. Would she embrace the horrifying legacy, or sever the bond forever? But just as she vowed to confront the darkness, a mighty howl enveloped her, a chorus from the woods, fierce and unnerving. The whispers grew louder as the ground beneath her cracked open. What horror awaited her from those cursed depths? The earth groaned, a deep, hollow sound that pulsed through Sarah's bones. It echoed a warning, a call to flee that conflicted with the fierce resolve swelling in her chest. The shadows shifted again, looming large, blending with the darkness of the woods that loomed menacingly on the edge of her vision. What waited for her there? What haunted forms writhed beneath that still surface? The howl rose, twisting her stomach in knots. It came again, a haunting sound. Was it beast or spirit? Panic clawed at her throat as she struggled to make sense of the spectral chaos that surrounded her. She cast another glance at Mr. Hendricks, only to find his eyes glinting with a maniacal hunger. He leered, high on the turmoil that engulfed the clearing. Give in, Sarah, he crooned, a tone syrupy with malice. The forest will not let you leave. It needs you. Your strength can feed the darkness. No. She gritted her teeth, forcing her feet into movement. The altar was a beacon, its grotesque surface inviting yet repulsive. She sprinted toward the safety it might offer, her heart racing along a path of terror. Was faith in a stone truly her last hope? The ground split wide before her. From the chasm surged a fog, rising like wraiths reaching for the living. Sarah stumbled. The murky air tasted of decay, and she coughed, chest heaving as she shielded her face. Shadows lunged, grasping for her, fingers cold as death itself, tugging insistently at her clothes, her skin. Help me, another voice urged, shrill and panicked. It sounded like her husband, but twisted, dissimilar, as if a part of him was swallowed whole by the evil lurking in the forest. Don't listen to them, Sarah. We need to fight. Fight, she questioned, breathless, the shadows swirling tighter around her. How? What do I do? There's no escape. No matter where you go, you'll only return. Mr. Hendricks' laugh echoed, a maddening sound. Join us, embrace the legacy. You can't stop the curse. Desperation surged through her, fueling her breaths. I can break it. I will break it, she screamed, her voice cracking against the cold embrace of fear gripping her heart. She centered herself, heart pounding, preparing for a confrontation that felt both impossible and necessary. That a sudden silence fell across the clearing. It was as if the woods themselves held their breath, waiting in eerie anticipation. Then, unseen forces collided, the darkness shuddering, a ripple coursing through the shadows, a tremor of doubt reverberating through the dark. Leave. Leave her be. The chorus of whispers rose into a crescendo, spectral voices overlapping, filling her with uncertain resolve. Sarah threw back her head, gathering her strength. I am not your plaything. She thrust her hands toward the altar again, this time with purpose, willing herself to connect with its history, its power. She could feel a warmth beneath her fingertips, a flicker of energy she dared to tap into. With every ounce of willpower, she pulled. The air crackled, and the shadows recoiled momentarily, hooting with rage and surprise. Don't fight the inevitable, Mr. Hendricks shouted, enraged, stretching out a skeletal hand toward her as if to draw her back into his embrace of darkness. Watch me, she shouted back, and the words hung in the cold air like a challenge. The ground beneath her cracked further, splintering not just of soil but of ancient, rotting roots mingled with bloodshed. Could this truly sever the bond? The thought burned bright as she pressed harder, visions rushing back the faces of those who came before, each wood-darkened soul screaming for release. The shadows writhed, an unholy panic washing over them. Just as the fog swirled again, ready to consume her, a flash of light erupted from the altar, cutting through the darkness. Sarah screamed, uncertain if she was freeing herself or drawing forth something more sinister, but within that blinding glow, an answer waited. And as the brilliant light surged, the howl returned, louder than any before, merging with a thundering roar from below. What would arise from that deep, gaping maw? What terrors awaited on the other side? The light flickered, struggling against the tide of night. The ultimate reckoning was about to unfold. The light rushed around Sarah, blinding her. She stumbled back against the altar, nearly losing her balance. A warmth pooled in her chest, contrasting sharply with the icy fear that had been her only companion up to this point. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in a cacophony of rage that filled her with adrenaline. The world around her trembled, shifting as if reality itself was being rewritten. Do not falter. The voice of her husband echoed in her mind, a beacon amidst chaos. Sarah pressed her palms against the altar, feeling the ancient stone pulsate beneath her touch, each thrum a heartbeat, each pulse a reminder of the lives lost, the spirits trapped. She envisioned the countless souls longing for escape, and her resolve crystallized. Together, she shouted, we can break this. With that intention burning inside her, she focused on the flickering light. It surged hotter, like fire igniting her veins. The shadows hissed, flowing backward, clawing for their own survival. She was not just a vessel for the curse. She was a force strong enough to confront it. Then, from the depths of the gaping chasm beneath her, something began to rise. At first, it was a glimmer, a mere shimmer in the dark, but it expanded quickly. A form materialized, a twisted figure with glowing eyes that bore witness to ages of torment. It bore a maw stretched wide, as if hungering for the life force that radiated from her. No, panic surged within her, but she fought against it. The figure lurched closer, a mass of shadows intertwined with sinewy limbs and faces contorted in agony. It moved with an alluring grace, yet each step echoed with sorrow that twisted her stomach. This was the thing Mr. Hendricks sought to unleash, the heart of darkness that thrived on despair. She quickly glanced at Hendricks, who was momentarily struck dumb by the light, his brow furrowed with confusion. This was her chance. This ends now, she yelled, her voice cracking like thunder. The bond she sought to sever would not yield easily. The figure lunged, its hand extending toward her, fingers sharp as daggers. With a primal scream, Sarah focused every ounce of her being into the light, calling forth the energy of the altar. The blinding radiance expanded, enveloping her like a protective cocoon, and the darkness recoiled, shrieking. The screech vibrated through her bones, a horrible harmony of anger and fear. The shadows twisted and writhed as they were pushed back, howls drowning in a cacophony of anguish that filled the clearing. Fight! Her husband's voice urged again. The love in his words filled her chest, empowering her. She twisted her hands, weaving the energy into an intricate web of light, forcing the dark figure back into the abyss from which it crawled. Tendrils of shadow snapped at her, pale and fierce, grasping for any chance at victory. Sarah felt the shadows take bites of her resolve, gnawing at her hope. But then, she heard the whispers again, not those of dread, but of encouragement, a chorus of faithful souls from the past. They urged her on, pulling her into a fevered dance of energy. Their crescendo filled the night, merging with her spirit, pushing the malevolence further into the depths. With one final push, the light shattered the last vestiges of the shadow. An explosion of brilliance cascaded through the clearing, the anguished faces of the cursed dissolving into the air. The very earth beneath her feet trembled violently as the light drew the darkness down into its own prison. Yet, as silence fell upon the clearing, Sarah's heart raced. An oppressive weight still hung in the air. Was it truly over? Had she broken the curse, or had she merely postponed the inevitable? The ground beneath the altar began to tremble again, and the fissure gaped wider. A deep rumbling echoed through the woods, shadows stirred restlessly, and from the depths, a new horror began to stir, awakening. What fresh terror loomed just beneath the surface? Was the forest truly free, or was it merely biding its time, awaiting an opportunity to reclaim its prey? Sarah braced herself, heart pounding once more as darkness crept closer. The echo of the darkness sent chills down Sarah's spine. She could feel its intent, an insatiable hunger clawing at her insides. The night thickened around her, shadows blending and merging like a nightmare she couldn't wake from. Eyes filled with malice glimmered amongst the twilight, each whispering a promise of doom. Focus, she whispered to herself, her breath hitching in her throat. Think. You can do this. The altar trembled beneath her hands, as if it could sense the impending danger. She glanced around, searching for something, anything, to grab onto. The air was electric with fear, a pressure mounting like a storm. Each beat of her heart synchronized with the trembling ground, making her question the reality of what was happening. Then, she saw a flicker of movement out of the corner of her eye, a dark shroud slowly coalescing near the edge of the clearing. But this time, it was different. It wasn't just shadows, it was a body. A figure, too familiar yet grotesquely twisted, shuffled forward, dragging chains of despair behind it. Hendricks, Sarah gasped, recognition sinking in deep. It was the man she had once trusted, albeit now nothing but a hollow shell consumed by darkness. His eyes shone with chaotic energy, swirling like storm clouds ready to unleash a deluge of terror. You think you've won? He croaked, voice like gravel, every word dripping with venom. This is just the beginning, the feast is yet to come. No, Sarah shouted, anger surging through her veins. The connection to the altar pulsed, an aura of light flickering in defiance. She couldn't let this be the end. Not for the spirits, not for her husband, not for herself. As Hendricks lunged, the chains behind him rattled with a dreadful echo. Sarah called on the energy of the altar, weaving it around her like a shield. Light seared through the cold darkness, fracturing the shadows that danced at the edges of the clearing. They were restless, panicked, eager to reclaim their master. Fight! 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 She chanted, each word a rhythm against the encroaching gloom, her voice filling the forest with defiance. The ground shook violently, vines slithering from the earth like serpents, reaching for the cursed man. They entwined around his legs, pulling him back, inch by agonizing inch. Suddenly, a piercing scream erupted from Hendricks as the light surrounded him. Shadows howled in pain, swirling into a frantic tempest. But amidst his cries, deep laughter rumbled from the depths. It was a sound that made Sarah's skin crawl, a mocking reminder of the horror lying beneath. What are you playing at, Sarah? He sneered, regaining some power as he wrestled against the chains. You can't imprison what was never meant to be free. The very fabric of the earth split and twisted as more figures emerged. Tortured souls clawed at the surface, reaching for salvation. Their wails of agony filled the air, drowning out all thoughts of hope. Sarah's heart raced as she realized they were not just reacting to Hendricks. They were responding to her. With renewed determination, she planted her feet firmly against the altar, channeling every ounce of love for her husband and every spirit she sought to protect. You will not take them. I refuse, she screamed. In that moment, A blinding wave surged from her, crashing against the nefarious tide, but in the chaos, something else spilled forth. A dark figure trailed between dimensions, a looming essence that sent an overwhelming chill through the air. Fear tightened in her chest, a paralyzing weight that whispered of loss and despair. Sarah, a voice wafted through, cool as a breeze but sinister like a shadow, slithering into her thoughts. You think you stand alone? Glancing over her shoulder, the depth of the horror unveiled grew wider as she realized there were more than just souls. They were entities from nightmares, drawn in by her light. What lay ahead was bleak and pulsing with malevolence, but she could feel it, a flicker of hope shining in the darkness. Did she have the strength to stand her ground, or would the shadows consume her whole? With the haunting echoes of Hendrix and the anguished wails engulfing her, Sarah realized the true battle was just beginning. A heartbeat thrummed in Sarah's ears as she faced the festering darkness. The night seemed alive, an insatiable creature ready to devour her spirit whole. Shadows writhed, each pulse matching the racing of her heart. What once felt like a fight for survival now morphed into a grotesque circus of despair where Hendrix was master of ceremonies. She staggered back, her footing uncertain, the altar crumbling beneath her as if the very ground rejected her presence. Despair twisted around her like barbed vines. Just moments ago, she wielded light. Now it flickered a candle against a storm. Help them, she murmured, desperate for guidance. But the very souls she hoped to save screamed in agony, and each scream was a reminder of her isolation. They weren't just trapped, they were feeding off her fear. Sarah, you're weak, Hendrix taunted, his features shifting like molten glass. Your pulse spells your end. Just give in. Something deep inside surged, a flicker of the unconditional love she had for her husband reignited with furious intensity. Was that what it was to be weak? No. The light within her fought hard against the chilling despair that wove through her thoughts. Enough, she cried, shooting a defiant glare at Hendrix. The chains loosened slightly as if startled by her resolve. With every ounce of strength, she pushed back, weaving the light into a thick barrier, a defiance of her darkest fears, but the shadows wouldn't relent. They surged forward, shrieking in a language older than time, a cacophony that threatened to drown her out. She squeezed her eyes shut against their darkness, recalling the warmth of her husband's smile. Light erupted from her, brilliant and blinding, slicing through the shadows like a knife. With each pulse of light, the tortured spirits released ties to their agony, drawn toward her like moths to a flame. There was a moment, a beautiful moment, when the darkness recoiled, unwelcome and uncertain. Then, with an earth-shattering wail, the dark figure intensified. It twisted into a shape so familiar, so haunting. Sarah felt her breath quicken. It mirrored someone she once loved. The realization clawed at her heart. The entity was amalgamating fears, pulling them into a hideous form. Sarah, it rasped, the voice syrupy and sweetened with malice. Can't you see? The loved ones you protect have forsaken you to join me. They crave the darkness as much as I do. No, she shouted, shaking her head. You're a lie. But doubt started to seep in with the words, trailing behind her confidence like shadows in the night. The air crackled with distress. She could almost feel their presence, the very energy of those she cherished merging with the maleficent power that Hendrix commanded. Did they really want to be saved? Did she possess the strength to save anyone? If you walk into the abyss, it will devour you. Your light snuffs against true hunger. Hendrix swirled closer, the atmosphere charged with hostility. Around them, the air thickened, clinging to her skin like a heavy mist. Fingers of cold brushed against her spine, chills dancing with ferocity. Panic surged, and Sarah struggled to keep the light burning within. Hope began to slip away, twisted and tangled in chains of doubt. Then, a haunting realization flickered amid her despair. The essence of her love was the only true anchor in this tempest. As long as she held on to that, she would stand a chance. Determined, she opened her eyes, searching for a glimpse of light through the insidious darkness woven into the night. But before she could reclaim her resolve, the shadows pressed in closer, and the laughter of her haunted past echoed, filling the clearing with poison. Prepare yourself, dear Sarah, Hendrix whispered, the promise of doom laced in every word. This is just the grand reveal as a wave of frost slid through her. Sarah clenched her fists, focused on the light, but found another flicker amongst the shadows. Could it be? Was someone else stirring within that despair? Servants of the dark were not the only ones lurking. What could her light unveil? And could she keep from being swallowed by the depths? The light flickered like a dying star, battling against the advancing shadows. Sarah felt her grip slipping, the warmth within her growing colder by the second. The laughter echoed, flaring the shadows around her. But there was something else. A whisper. Amid the cacophony, another voice emerged, a faint yet distinct plea, soft and desperate. "Help me," heart pounding. Sarah turned her head, desperately scanning the swirling darkness. The emptiness shifted, distorting her senses. Could it be? Was there someone else there? A life waiting to be saved? "Who are you?" she cried, her voice barely a breath above the raging storm of despair. The adrift shadows twisted and churned, but that voice persisted, cutting through like a beacon. Sarah, it was clear now. Familiar yet tainted. "You have to believe." The flicker of hope ignited inside her once more, and for the first time, she felt a stirring of clarity. None of this Hendrix, the shadows, the pain could truly sever the bonds she shared with her loved ones. That bond pulsed like an erratic heartbeat, stronger than any malevolence surrounding her. "Reveal yourself," she demanded, a fierce light emerging around her fingertips. The shadows recoiled, hissing against the light. Sarah felt a surge of strength, pulsating in rhythm with her racing heart. "Show yourself. I will not fail you again." Then, like a wave crashing against the shore, the shadows peeled back, revealing a figure cloaked in dusk. Fear twisted inside her, yet there was something ethereal about the shape, a glimmer of recognition. Sarah said the figure, stepping forward, and in the fragmented pieces of darkness, she saw him. Mark. Her husband. "You must hurry, they are coming, Mark." Her voice cracked, torn between joy and anguish. She reached for him, but he faltered, as if held back by unseen chains. The light around her flickered wildly, pulsing in rhythm with her escalating panic. "Don't let them in." Mark's voice was strained, the words breaking like brittle glass. "You must fight. Love is the key. Do not let darkness claim us both." Hendrix screamed, his rage reverberating through the clearing. The ground shuddered beneath them, a precursor of the chaos to come. "You think this matters? Love is a weakness, a chain that binds you to despair. Keep him safe," Sarah shouted, a fierce determination igniting within her. She gritted her teeth, channeling everything, every ounce of her love into that blinding light. It pushed back with relentless fury, illuminating the tendrils of darkness and casting shadows away. "I will rescue you," she vowed, but the shadows lunged forward, encircling Mark. The air thickened, and a chill seeped into her bones. "Sarah, I'm slipping." His voice, once strong under the glow of joy, now echoed with dread. The chains of sorrow latched tighter. Panic clawed at her throat, and for a heartbeat, all she could think was how those chains threatened to snatch him away again. "No, not again. Fight," Mark urged, tears pooling like diamonds in his bright, lost eyes. "I believe in you." Heart racing, she unleashed the light from deep within. It surged forward, burning brighter than a star, pushing against everything. Shadows writhed and shrieked, retreating, yet they were not entirely gone. She sensed them gathering, preparing for another onslaught. Time raced ahead, and Sarah saw a path forged by her light, darting through the dark mists. Would she need to sacrifice herself to free him? Her heart shattered at the thought, but a fierce love beckoned her on. "Mark, I will break this evil," she screamed, locking her gaze on him. In that moment, she knew love indeed wasn't a weakness, it was her weapon. "Please," Mark's pained voice fueled her resolve as the shadows prepared to engulf her. Again and again as the darkness closed in, a final thought struck her. Was there truly no way out? Could they both be saved, or would one of them face destruction to save the other? "Sarah," he cried, caught in a grip of darkness, reaching out, desperate. The shadows pressed closer, and she felt every beat of her heart echo a promise that she would not let it end like this. And as she prepared to unleash everything she had, the shadows whispered secrets and truths mingled in their hushed tones, a revelation that could entwine their fate irrevocably. what lies awaited her in that abyss. And at what cost? Determined, Sarah clung to hope, drenching her growing fear in the purest light that she could muster. Could she decipher its meaning before it was too late? The shadows lunged, clawing at Sarah's will. She felt them wrap around her, squeezing all her doubts resurfacing. I can't lose him again, she yelled, fighting against the creeping despair. Mark's figure shimmered, distorted by the grip of darkness, and every fiber of her being burned with urgency. Sarah's voice strained, a whisper wrapped in pain. The edges of her world blurred as the shadows wheeled and circled, choking out the light she fought to maintain. With every ounce of fury, Sarah summoned the light, igniting it deeper within herself. It flared up, illuminating the night. Get away from him, she screamed, propelling her will into a beam that pierced the darkness. It propelled her forward, carving through, a sliver of hope cutting through despair. Run, Mark shouted, pulling against the chains binding him. She watched as his eyes flashed with both fear and trust, that beautiful glimmer pushing her on. The shadows recoiled, but only briefly, hissing a flurry of threats. They swirled back, dizzying and relentless, drawing in close. Together, she thought desperately. If they could cast the shadows out, they could save each other. She lunged toward him, but the darkness tugged her back, pulling her closer to the edge of dread. Mark's form flickered more violently, as if he were being stretched between two realms. Believe in us, he cried, desperation sharpening the edges of his words. Their connection, the pulse of love, felt like a heartbeat she couldn't ignore. It's not just me you must believe. Just hold on, she begged, her heart racing, feeling every beat like a clock counting down. Her light flickered, threatening to wane with every second. She surged forward again, but something shifted in the dark. A figure emerged, slick with shadows, a predator encased in dread, Hendrix. Such sweet emotion, he chuckled, the sound slicing through the rising swell of hope. But love is futile. It only drags you down. His voice echoed through the chasm, a taunt that sent fresh waves of cold coursing through her. Stop, Sarah screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. You won't take us. She focused all her intent into the light, amplifying it with every ounce of her love for Mark. Sarah, I can't hold, Mark began, but a different darkness seized him, pulling him deeper into the fray. She felt the pulse of her light tremble, teetering on the edge. Let him go? It was like a primal roar, bursting from deep within Sarah, trembling with raw power. Light burst forth, flooding the shadows, momentarily banishing them. But the victory was fleeting. Did you think it was that easy? Hendrix hissed, his laughter weaving through the air like poison. Tendrils of darkness lashed out, tangling themselves around her and Mark, holding them fast. The cold seeped in again, and the walls of despair constricted. Don't you see? You're bound to each other in the worst way. He spat, weaving tighter strands of darkness around them. Sarah felt the shudders of despair surge through the air like an electric current. The shadows flickered close to her skin, whispering insidious doubts like the chilling brush of a spider's web. In that moment of desperation, an unfamiliar sensation flickered inside her, a realization. Maybe love was never for them to wield against this darkness alone. Maybe it needed to transform, to evolve. Sarah Mark's voice wavered, but the fear didn't paralyze her. It ignited something primal, pushing the air from her lungs. What if I can't just fight it? She murmured just above a whisper. As fear dripped away from her like sweat, clarity replaced it. What if I embrace the shadows? Sarah, don't, Mark shouted, panic rising in his voice. But Hendrix recoiled, suddenly threatened. Embrace it? Hendrix mocked, his face twisting in confusion. That will spell your doom. A chance, a flicker of uncertainty ignited within her. Could she embrace the darkness to wield its power? As the shadows tightened their grip, her heart thundered. In that fragile moment, she needed to decide, to submit, or to fight with a new resolve. With Mark's life hanging by a thread, the air thickened with uncertainty. What would it mean to embrace the darkness? And at what cost would their freedom come? The forest whispered secrets as Sarah stood on the edge of that treacherous decision. Her heart raced, a war drum echoing in her chest as darkness and light collided. Would embracing the shadows mean surrendering to despair? Or could it lead to a strength she had yet to discover? Sarah, Don't do it. Mark's voice reached out to her, frayed and filled with fear. She gazed into his eyes. There was pain, yes, but also unwavering love. She could almost taste the years they'd shared, the laughter, the promises. Every moment lived surged through her, a lifeline pulling her back toward hope. But the shadows tightened their grip, insisting, whispering messages of power, of freedom. What if I don't have to choose? She murmured as realization washed over her like a tidal wave. What if I don't fight them? What if I accept them, but on my terms? Hendricks, startled, scoffed, his twisted grin faltering. You think you can control the shadows? They'll consume you. This is my choice. She shouted, her voice breaking the tension that hung in the air like thick fog. Your darkness won't define me, I'll wield it instead. As she spoke, a warmth blossomed within her. The very foundation of her love for Mark infused her spirit, intertwining with the darkness that beckoned her. The shadows swirled around her, grasping for her surrender, but she pulled them close instead, inviting them to dance at her fingertips. I'm not afraid, she cried, channeling their energy. The darkness began to shift, morphing from a predator into a tool shaped by her will. Mark watched, eyes wide with uncertainty, but a flicker of hope ignited within. Yes, Sarah, he urged, strength returning to his voice. You've always been stronger than this. Embrace the power within. With newfound resolve, Sarah harnessed the shadows like a tempest, drawing upon the very essence of them, layering them with her light, merging them into something whole. Tendrils of darkness spiraled into streams of light, illuminating their surroundings with a brilliant glow, transforming the malevolence into something beautiful. The world shifted, and for the first time, the shadows seemed to hesitate, uncertain, unraveling at the seams of their own threat. No, Hendricks screamed, his once confident facade crumbling. The chains binding Mark began to tremble and loosen, hope blooming like wildflowers in the desolation. Now, Sarah urged with fierce determination. Together, Mark. Reach for me. Mark, though still bound, focused on their connection, heart racing in rhythm with Sarah's resolve. The chains rattled violently as he struggled against them, pulling himself closer. I'm fighting for us, he echoed, strength rippling through him. With a final surge of power, Sarah unleashed their entwined energy. It erupted like fireworks in the night sky, casting away the shadows and fracturing the darkness around them. The forest echoed with relieved cries as spirits danced, pulling away from their binds of despair, basking in the light of liberation. Her heart swelled as she called forth the energy, the darkness swirling into submission. Hendricks was powerless. His voice, once chilling, cracked and trembled as the tide turned. You think you've won? He croaked, but his bravado unraveled. I have won, Sarah declared, allowing the last remnants of darkness to wrap tightly around Hendricks, anchoring him to the very shadows he'd used against her. The whispers climbed to a terrible crescendo, a wild symphony that drowned his screams in the night. With a final pulse of light, she shattered the chains around Mark, and he broke free, lunging toward her, wrapping her in an embrace that felt like home. Sarah, you did it, he exclaimed, tears glistening in his eyes. The forest erupted around them, bathing in blinding light, the cursed ground releasing its grip on the town's inhabitants, unwinding the chains of sorrow that had bound them for generations. The spirits soared upward, free at last, merging with the sky as wails of anguish transformed into joyous cries. Maplewood is free, Sarah laughed, holding on to Mark as exhilaration surged through their veins. The darkness, once so daunting, now shrank away, a mere memory, vanquished by the power of unity and love. As the glowing remnants faded into the dawn sky, Sarah knew their lives would never be the same. Though shadows would always exist, they would now choose to wield their light, embracing the darkness within to ensure that its ties could never again take hold. Together, hand in hand, they turned back toward Maplewood, not just free from the curse, but armed with understanding, ready to forge a new path where light and darkness danced together, forever intertwined. The world was theirs again, and the journey of healing had just begun, but they would never walk alone. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support and let us keep the story going.